Russia has emerged from a decade of post-Soviet chaos and disintegration to reassert itself as a major player on the world stage, both politically and economically. President Putin and his successor, President Medvedev, have restored public confidence in this country, and the vast oil and gas reserves have resulted in growing political and economic influence. As an enormous geographic area, it is dangerous to ever generalize about Russia and its certain universal truths. However, typically the Russians approach the business and life in general. Firstly, it is always worth bearing in mind that for centuries, the state has always been seen as an organ of oppression and repression. Laws and statutes are therefore seen as the enemy and to be avoided and evaded at all costs. Contracts are valid only if supported by a close personal friendship, and taxes are left unpaid on both a corporate and personal level. Despite these issues, Russia has been identified as a high-growth potential market with opportunities in market sectors as varied as banking and finance, technology and computing, infrastructure development, and education.
Autocracy and centralized decision-making are synonymous with the Soviet system in many people's eyes, and this approach can certainly be seen to be manifested within large Russian business organizations. Russian companies tend to be driven by one strong central figure who will make strategic decisions with little or no consultation with anyone other than a handful of close, trusted advisors. Therefore, when dealing with potential clients or joint venture partners in Russia, it is absolutely essential to make sure that the right person is being dealt with. Western companies who attempt to interface at inappropriate levels within an organization waste massive amounts of time and resource. The advice in Russia says, nowhere is the advice, go straight to the top.
Management tends to be centralized and directive. The boss is expected to issue direct instructions for employees to follow. Little consultation will be expected from people lower down the company hierarchy. Indeed, too much consultation from a senior manager could be seen as a sign of weakness and lack of decisiveness. Middle managers have little power over strategy or input in significant strategic decisions. The most powerful middle managers are the ones who have the most immediate entree in the decision maker at the top of the organization. There is little point in wasting time debating with middle managers who do not have an easy access to the top. The most significant reason for delay in reaching a decision in Russia is that the decision has not been put in front of a real decision maker.
As might be expected in a country where managers are autocratic in style, meetings are often for the purpose of information dissemination rather than for the open debate of current business issues. Formal meetings are often held to ratify decisions which have been made elsewhere, to give clear instruction on key tasks to be performed. Formal meetings tend to be very structural and serious. The door image associated with many Russian negotiators stems from the belief that a formal meeting is a serious affair and should be treated accordingly. Humor is seldom used in such serious situations.
Teams work best together when the relationships amongst the group are close. There remains a general suspicion of strangers in Russian society, and any attempt to bring together teams from different strands of an organization can be problematic. Once a team has been established and is working well together, it is probably best to keep the team intact for as long as possible. Move the team wholesale from project to project rather than developing a fresh team for every situation. The team leader is expected to play a domineering role and to issue precise detailed instructions and then supervise ongoing progress. Those Western managers who are more used as a hands-off approach will undoubtedly confuse local staff who will feel unsure of what is expected of them. A team leader needs to establish credibility through being decisive, clear, and visibly in control.
English language levels vary enormously in Russia. Many younger entrepreneurs, especially in the cosmopolitan centers like Moscow and St. Petersburg, have fluent command of not only English but other several European languages. Yet in other more provincial centers, it is not unusual to meet business people who have little or no foreign language skill. Always check in advance whether interpretation is needed. If in any doubt about the comprehension levels encouraged in meeting situations, be sure to check and recheck by asking relevant open questions at regular intervals. Outside Moscow and St. Petersburg, most signs are written exclusively in the Cyrillic script, and knowledge of this will go a long way on a trip to the more remote areas of Russia. There tend to be very little visual or verbal feedback during meetings in Russia. People listen silently and with little obvious body language being displayed. This does not, however, mean that the listener is disinterested or does not understand. It is merely a cultural characteristic which Russians share with amongst each other, the Finns and the Japanese. Russians will tend to wait and think before responding to a point made to them. Do not be impatient. Allow the Russians to the time and space needed to take part fully in the conversation. Also remember that they are probably struggling with foreign language as well.
The communist system of Russia preached equality of the sexes, but had far less success in achieving the objective than their counterparts in the People's Republic of China. Thus, although a high percentage of the Russian workforce is female, there are very, very few women in senior management positions. This situation shows little signs of changing, other than in some of the offices of major MNCs stationed in the country. Western women working in Russia will be showered with an old-fashioned courtesies, but may find themselves being less respected in meetings and treated as inferior in rank to male colleagues.
Russians tend to dress as well as their salaries will allow. Men would tend to wear either a dark suit or jacket and trousers with a tie, and women mainly wear business suits or blouses and skirts. It is important for Westerners to look smart and appear to be expensively dressed in this enhanced credibility. From this safety standpoint, it is probably not advisable to wear very expensive watches or jewelry. The winters can be extreme, as can be the summers, so ensure suitable clothing to meet whatever the prevailing conditions are. Be sure to remember a hat, gloves, and scarf for the winter.
Top 5 tips. The first tip: in a country where the rule of law has all but broken down, the only thing that can be relied upon in a business context is the strength of the relationships upon which the business is based. Do not underestimate the importance of relationship building or the time taken in the process. Second tip: Russian companies are often driven and directed by one strong, central character. Without the approval of this individual, very few decisions will be taken, and any that would probably prove invalid. Third tip: managers are expected to manage, and this means giving precise and detailed instructions to subordinates. Inclusive caring management styles might be viewed as weak. Fourth tip: once teams have been established and the internal relationships seem to be working well, it is important to keep the team together if possible. Russians can be wary of strangers, and the relationship building process can be long. Fifth tip: formal meetings are serious occasions and should not be treated lightly. Any overly informal behavior could be construed as lack of respect for senior management, the company, or even the country.
It is difficult to know what to expect when invited out to lunch or dinner in Russia. The event could simply be a relationship-building exercise where little, if any, actual business is discussed, but on the other hand, you can find yourself in very detailed negotiations, with pressure being applied to complete a deal on spot. Russia has always had a reputation for being a hard-drinking culture, and this has traditionally been true. Many Russians insist that heavy drinking sessions at business dinners are becoming a thing of the past, but you have to expect that a good deal of strong alcohol is likely to be consumed. Very often during the elaborate toasting sessions that take place, these drinks are consumed. Favorite drinks are vodka and Russian champagne, although beer and wine are now more common than a few years ago.
Land area: 17,075,500 square kilometers. Population: 141 million. Population density: 8.4 square kilometers. Life expectancy: men 62 years, women 74. Adult literacy: 99%. Currency ruble. GDP US 1,232 billion. GDP per heads US dollar 8,680.
Main exports are fuel, metal, machinery, and equipment and chemicals. Export destinations are the Netherlands 12%, Italy 7%, China 5%, and Germany 4%.
Main imports are machinery and equipment, food products, chemicals, metal, and food and drinks. Main countries of origin are U.S. 14%, China 13%, Germany 5%, Ukraine 5%.